Hello everyone. So today we are going to deal with a topic, doctrine of separation of power, and in this we will see the separation of power, its doctrine, and then origin, how it got originated, objective, propounder of separation of power. Then we will see its application in United States and India, and then what are the relevant provisions of the Indian Constitution that talks about the separation of power, and then we will see various Supreme Court judgment to support whether the Constitution recognizes separation of power or not. So we will study all this in the context of 2019 mains question. A question has come on separation of power. Do you think the Constitution of India does not accept principle of separation of power, rather it is based on principle of checks and balance? Explain. 10 marks question in 2019 mains. So before going into the question, we need to understand what is separation of power. So we'll start with what is separation of power. So separation of power, let's see the definition. It is the doctrine of constitutional law. Constitutional law which separates or distributes power among the three organs of the government. Among the three organs of the government, that is executive, legislature and judiciary, so as to checks and balance to create checks and balance among the three organs of the government. So what is the doctrine of separation of power? It desires that the powers of the government, the powers of the government should be distributed among its three organs rather than be concentrated in one single hand. So it says that the power need to be distributed among the executive, legislature and judiciary. So I hope you know what are the function of each organs of the government: the executive, legislature and judiciary. The legislature, law making body; executive, the implementer of law; and then the judiciary, dispute settlement. The work of the judiciary is, if there is any dispute among these two organs of the government, or if the citizens have any disputes with the state, then the dispute must be settled by the judiciary according to the rule of law, according to the principle of rule of law. Then what is rule of law? Rule of law says that everybody is equal in the eye of law, and the three organs, the power distribution among three organs of the government has to be also according to the rule of law. So it's not the arbitrary division of power, but it should be based on certain principles, that yes, the law making part will be with the legislature, the implementation of the law should be in the hand of the executive, and the dispute settlement work should be looked after by the judiciary. So this should be a clear-cut division of function among the three organs of the government. Right? I hope you understand till here. We have seen the doctrine of separation of power. What does it mean? It means basically the power need to be separated. Then we'll see the objective and origin. We'll see simultaneously. So what is the objective? Why do we want separation of power at all? What is the requirement for that? So the requirement was to protect civil liberty. To protect the civil liberty and to prevent the system from becoming tyrannical or authoritarian. So it is said that too much of power concentrated in a single authority would jeopardize the individual liberty. People will not be as free. People will not enjoy freedom and liberty if too much of power is concentrated into single hand. As Lord Acton has said, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So more is the power, more is the need of control. That's why separation of power is essential to protect civil liberties, freedom of citizens. Without that, it cannot happen. And to put a system of accountability. If there is no separation of power, there can be no system of accountability. Like earlier we had a monarchical system. All the power concentrated in the hand of the monarch. So obviously the monarch was not accountable to the people or to any system. There was no system of accountability. So the same way people would not be able to enjoy that freedom and liberty. The law, because the same person is making the law, the same person is implementing the law, and the same person will, whenever the dispute arises, will solve the dispute also. So obviously there is more chances of arbitrary governance, arbitrary government. So what will be the casualty? The casualty is the civil liberties. There cannot be any civil liberties. People's lives will depend on the whims and fancies of the ruling class. Right? So that is the requirement for separation of power. That is the essence. That's why separation of power is required. So now we have seen the objective and origin. So origin of separation of power has taken place with the democratic regime. Democratic regime. So where there is a system of accountability, where there is a system where people can participate in the governance and they can hold their ruling class accountable. So separation of power, we can see the separation of power where there is a democratic regime. Where there is an absence of democratic regime, there cannot be any separation of power, or it will be just on the paper. There will be no full-fledged separation of power. Full-fledged separation of power. So we have seen the separation of power, its doctrines, origin, objective, and then we will see the propounder of separation of power. So for the first time, it was in the 4th century BC, Aristotle. From the exam point of view, that is not very important what the Aristotle has said, or we will see later on John Locke. The main propounder is of course Baron de Montesquieu. We'll come to that point. So just a little bit of that, how it originated. So in the 4th century BC, Aristotle, for the first time, he talked about that there should be separation of power, and the power need to be divided among the 3 organs. He talks about the deliberative function, then official function, and the judicial function. So deliberative, as the name says, there has to be a a system where discussions and deliberations should take place, and laws should be made by this deliberative body. Official means just like the executive function, and then judicial functions for solving the disputes. But Aristotle has not come up with how these things will be implemented, because in the 4th century BC, there was a monarchical setup throughout the world. There was no democracy or such thing like that to control the power of the king. So obviously, though he talked about that to protect civil liberties or to give more freedom, free society can be established when there is a separation of power. But he could not recommend how it will be able to implement. Then in the 17th century, so you can see it was Greece where the separation of power, doctrine of separation of power has taken birth in Greek system. But we'll see the practical shape was later on given by Montesquieu. In 17th century, John Locke, the British philosopher, he talked about in his book Two Treatises of Government. In his Two Treatises of Government, he talked about separation of function. So here he again said that power need to be divided into 3 organs. He talked about legislative, executive and federative. So again, by the 17th century already in Britain there was a parliament system was already established. So he talked about there has to be legislative function, executive and federative. But then what was the flaw in this system? First of all, John Locke did not again provide how things will be implemented. Secondly, he has given legislative body a supreme power, that legislature will be supreme. But when we have seen separation of power, there is no supreme. There is neither the executive nor the legislature and nor the judiciary. Nobody is supreme to each other. They have a equal kind of a system, right? Equal separation of power. They have a equal status. It's not like anybody is supreme to other body. But in Britain already there was parliamentary supremacy was going on, and that's why he given more powerful position to the legislature. Secondly, another flaw was that he has included judicial function in the executive function itself. So he has not given a separate independent judicial function. So again, because of this, the separation, how the separation of power will come or exist, how it will apply in a proper system, he could not recommend that. Then in the 18th century, Baron de Montesquieu, in the 18th century, he talked about separation of power, doctrine of separation of power in his book Spirit of Laws. And here he said that the power need to be divided among the executive, legislative and judiciary. So what we see today about the separation of power is mostly what has been recommended by Montesquieu. He has given a way of the practical shape to the doctrine of separation of power, that power need to be separated among the 3 organs of the government, that is executive, legislature and judiciary. And it was the first time US Constitution which has given practical shape to the separation of power by including separation of power into its constitution. US Constitution, the oldest one, the oldest written constitution. It has given the constitution of US has given practical shape to the doctrine of separation of power propounded by Montesquieu. Baron de Montesquieu. So we have seen, the propounder, and then we'll see its application. We'll see application both in US, because that has been for the first time US Constitution included separation of power, and we'll also see how the separation of power is established in Indian system. So we'll see the application both in India and US. So US, and then we'll see, we'll bifurcate and then we'll see India. So US has given a more, you can say, it has taken a very close view of separation of power. It has given a more strict application of separation of power. If you compare from India, there is no as such, as Montesquieu wanted, that there has to be a complete separation of power. That cannot happen in practical things. So US, though it has given a system of separation of power, executive, legislative and judiciary, there is more separation of power because it has a presidential system. Presidential system in which each organ, they work in an independent fashion. Though they coordinate with each other, but comparatively they are independent to each other. Like the executive, the president, he is elected for a fixed term of 4 years, and he is not accountable to the legislature for his day-to-day business, nor he attends the meeting of the legislature, right? Means there is no system of no confidence motion like we have in India, right? To prove the stability of the government. So president is elected for a fixed term of 4 years. The legislature can remove the Congress, that is in US. The Congress can remove the president for the gross violation of the Constitution. That's the impeachment process, which is in itself is a very, very difficult process. So the president works in an independent fashion of the legislature. He is not accountable to the legislature for his day-to-day administration. Secondly, legislature is the law-making body. It also functions in an independent manner. Thirdly, judiciary for settling the dispute, an independent judiciary. So each organ work in an independent manner. The executive is not part of the legislature, neither the legislature is a part of executive, right? Now we'll come to India. How India, the separation of power, the application of separation of power is bit different from US. So India has adopted, as you know, parliamentary system. Parliamentary system. So again here we have the three organs of the government, that is executive, legislature and judiciary. But what is the difference here between the presidential system and parliamentary system? It is the executive has worked in a close association with the legislature. The executive is not independent of the legislature. They work in a close association. Like, for example, the minister who is a part of the executive system is also part of the legislature. He has to be member of parliament. A minister has to be a member of parliament. So here you'll see there is a close association between executive and legislature. Further, the executive is accountable to the legislature for their day-to-day business. The legislature controls the executive through various systems like question hours, resolutions, motions, and the executive has to always see that they have always the confidence of the legislature. The day the lower house in India passes a no confidence motion against the government, the executive will fall down, right? So this is what it has got a more close association. So you can see there is no strict separation of power, though there is separation of power, but there is no strict separation of power. If you compare from US, we do not have that strict separation of power. And then judiciary is independent of executive and legislature here. Now we'll see, how they control each other. Even in US, there is no theoretical separation of power like watertight compartment of separation of power, because if it happens, it will be really difficult to work, because all these three organs has to work in close coordination with each other. They do interact with each other and they control each other. So we'll see like executive, legislature and judiciary. So you see there is a system of kind of a checks and balance. Each organ has given certain powers to check and balance the power of the other organs. Like you see, a law passed by legislature has to be accepted by the executive. Only when the executive sign it, it becomes a law. So the executive can control the law made by legislature through veto power, isn't it? Same way, the executive can be controlled by the legislature through impeachment process. Impeachment in US, the president can be impeached by the legislature. So this is how the legislature controls the executive, right? And India, how it is done? By passing no confidence motion. No confidence motion, the government will fall down, right? And also through the impeachment process, the Article 61, the president can be removed, right? So this is how the legislature control the executive. So we can see how each organ is controlling each other. Executive controlling legislature through the veto power and all. Then the legislature controlling to the executive through their removal process, through their approval of the budgets and all, through the questions, through resolutions. Then we'll see how legislature control the judiciary. So legislature controls the judiciary through the removal process. The judges of the Supreme Court can be removed for proved misbehavior and incapacity. So in this way the legislature also controls the judiciary. Then how judiciary controls the legislature? So the judiciary, Article 13, judicial review, right? So judiciary will see the law passed by the legislature or the law made by the legislature is not unconstitutional. It is not going against the constitution. If it goes, it can be declared null and void by the judiciary. So this is how you can see that legislature controlling the judiciary and judiciary controlling the legislature. Then we will see how the executive controls the judiciary. The executive controls the judiciary through the appointment process, because it is the executive who gives the final appointment to the judges of Supreme Court and High Court. Then how judiciary controls the executive? The judiciary will control the executive. Same way, Article 13, it does not apply only to the legislative action but also the executive actions. The judiciary can review the executive action and see if the act done by the executive is unconstitutional. It can be declared null and void, and the suitable penalties can also be imposed on the executive if they are taking any unconstitutional steps. So this is how we see that each organ of the constitution is controlling to each other. So there is a system of checks and balance. So just remember all this because we will discuss in the question. So now we have seen the doctrine of separation of power, how it is applied in US and how it is applied in India. So you can say that in in relative mode that US the application of separation of power is more full-fledged or more strict than in India, where there is a parliamentary system where separation of power is partial in nature, not complete. Here you can see complete separation of power if you compare to India, Where? In US, more complete application of separation of power. In India, it is more partial in nature. It is not complete application of separation of power because we have a parliamentary system. And then we see that how it is modified more by the system of checks and balances. Each organ has been given certain power to check the and balance the power of the other organ. Fine. So till here we have seen. Now we'll see relevant provision of the Indian Constitution. What the Indian Constitution has to say about separation of power. Relevant provision of Indian Constitution. So we'll see Article 50. The articles which support separation of power, because the question says that the Constitution of India does not accept. So you have to show that yes, there are certain provisions which support separation of power. You have to give the the evidence that what is there in the Constitution that supports there is separation of power. It doesn't mean if the question has given does not, you will just justify that. You have to see that what are the provisions. You can even go against the questions, whatever given in the question. The only thing is that you have to justify it through the facts. You have to support it. So we'll see that there are certain provisions in the Indian Constitution that talks about separation of power, like Article 50. Article 50 is a part of DPSP which says that the state should make endeavor to separate the executive and judicial function, right? To separate the executive and judicial function. So the Indian Constitution does recognize separation of power, isn't it? That's why they are saying that there has to be separation of power. Article 50 says that the executive and judicial function need to be separated. Then Article 121. Article 121 deals with, it says that the conduct of the judges of Supreme Court and High Court cannot be discussed in the Parliament. The conduct of judges of Supreme Court and High Court while discharging their official duty cannot be discussed in the Parliament except for their removal. When they are to be removed, when the judges need to be removed, when the resolution seeking removal of the judges, at that time they can discuss the conduct of the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court, but not otherwise. So they should, and why this has been given in the Constitution? To make the judiciary independent. That they should work without a fear of criticism. That there is a system which protects them against unfair criticism. So Article 21 supports that the judiciary has to be independent. The conduct of the judges of Supreme Court and High Court cannot be discussed in the Parliament except for their removal. Then Article 122, it talks about that the judiciary cannot intervene. Judiciary cannot intervene in the proceedings of the Parliament. Means the Parliament, in following its proceeding regarding the passage of bill or to regulate its affairs, it is the whole sole authority of the Parliament. It is the presiding officer who will decide within the presence of the Parliament that what is going inside that, and judiciary has been barred to intervene in that. So it makes the Parliament, the legislative body, independent of the judiciary. So can you see how separation of power is mentioned in the Constitution? How it is, each organ has been given certain independent function, and in that nobody should unnecessarily intervene. Right? So Article 122 deals with that. The proceedings of the Parliament should not be inquired by the court. Whatever happen is within the presence of the Parliament. It is the ultimate authority of the presiding officer, and it is the Parliament which will regulate its functions and all, and it cannot be called in question by the judiciary, whether in passing the bill proper procedure were being followed or not. All these things has to be regulated by the Parliament. The judiciary will, once the law goes to the judiciary to see whether it is constitutional and not, at that time judiciary will intervene, but not in the day-to-day working of the Parliament. Right? Article 21. Then we'll see Article 361. That deals with that the President and the Governor, for their official discharge of the function, cannot be called in the question of law. Means court cannot intervene. Court cannot intervene in the official discharge of duty of the President and Governor. If President and Governor, they are discharging their official duty, in that matter the court cannot intervene. So you see how the executive has also been given independence, a separate function. Nobody is going to intervene in their day-to-day business. So you can see these are the articles which supports separation of power. Then we'll see what are the articles which shows that there is an overlapping function. There is no strict separation of power, or which negates the separation of power. So we'll see, we have seen separation of power, the article which supports separation of power, and then we'll see overlapping function, overlapping functions. How in the Indian Constitution there are certain provisions which says that there is no strict separation of power and there is overlapping function. So for this you see Article 72. What is the Article 72? That deals with the pardoning power of the President. Pardoning power. So pardoning power is what? It is a judicial function, right? To pardon somebody, it is a judicial function, but taken up by the executive. So you see, judicial function done by the executive. Overlapping functions. Then article you see 1, 2, 3. What is Article 1, 2, 3? That deals with the ordinance making power of the President, isn't it? So again you see ordinance is what? It is equivalent to law. It has got the same force as the law made by the Parliament. So here you see the executive has been given law making power. Isn't it? The executive has been given law making power. So again you can see there is an overlapping function, or you can say there is a negation of separation of power. It shows that there is no strict separation of power. The executive taking up the role of the legislature also in some urgent situation, right? So you can talk about Article 72, you can talk about Article 123, you can talk about Article 105. So what is 105? That deals with the privileges of the Parliament. Privileges of the Parliament, members, committees and all. So here that within the presence of the Parliament, any member of the Parliament, whatever they have said, in the manner they have voted, right? So it cannot be questioned in the court of law. The judiciary will not intervene in anything whatever happening in the Parliament, and it is absolute right of the Parliament to regulate what will be the privileges, right? What is their rights? So that is what the Parliament determines its own privileges, right? Parliament determining its own privileges, and if there is any breach of privilege of the Parliament, even the Parliament can punish for its contempt. If there is any breach of privileges of the Parliament can punish for its contempt. So you see, punishment giving right is what? It's a judicial function, isn't it? But taken up by whom? Legislature. Legislature taking up the role of the judiciary. Judicial function. So in this way you can mention these articles to show that there is an overlapping functions and there is no strict separation of power in the Indian Constitution. These are the points in your support, right? In that support. Then we'll see checks and balance. How the Indian Constitution talks about, checks and balances. Given certain rights or certain power, checks and balances. So you talk about here Article 61. So what is Article 61? It deals with the impeachment process of the president, isn't it? Impeachment process of the president. So here the legislature has been given authority. So if the Parliament passes a resolution seeking removal of the president on the ground of violation of constitution, right? If the executive has violated the constitution, the legislature can remove the executive through following the procedure of Article 61. So legislature has been given a controlling power over the executive, checking the power, so that the executive do not become tyrannical, authoritarian, or do not overpass the constitutional norms. They have to work within the limit drawn by the constitution. So that is what the Article 61 gives legislature a control over the executive. Then you can talk about Article 13. Article 13 is what? Power of judicial review. So it says that if a law passed by the Parliament or any executive action going against the constitution, specifically fundamental rights, then it can be declared null and void by the Supreme Court, isn't it? The Supreme Court regulates the power of executive and legislature through the power of judicial review. Are you getting my point? So in this way you talk about Article 16, you talk about Article 13, right? So in this way the power, checks and balances. Then you have even the Parliament has got right to remove the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, isn't it? In case of proved misbehavior and incapacity. So in that way the legislature controlling the judiciary. So you see, each organ is controlling to each other. They have to see that all the organs of the constitution works within the limits of the constitution. Nobody transgress its limit. So that is what the essence of separation of power, and that is what the essence of system of checks and balances. So now till here we have seen, and then we'll see supportive statement. What is the another supportive statement? We have seen the constitution, then relevant Supreme Court judgment to support your answer. What judiciary or the Supreme Court has to say in India regarding the separation of power, without which your answer will not be complete. So you have to mention about the judicial judgment. So for the first time in 1955 in Ram Javaya Kapoor versus State of Punjab, the issues regarding separation of power cropped up here, and the Supreme Court has, it was regarding the extent of executive power and also the federal relation, how the separation of power will apply to the extent of executive power. So the Supreme Court said that the executive cannot take up the role of legislature in framing any laws which takes away the fundamental rights of the citizens. So in this way the Supreme Court said that we have a system of separation of power. The separation of power is incorporated in Indian Constitution. The executive cannot take up the role of the legislature. In this case it was discussed. So that shows that the Supreme Court supports there is a certain case of separation of power. At the same time the Supreme Court said that there is no strict separation of power, because there are certain overlapping functions, because the executive has been given law making power through ordinance, article 1, 2, 3. So in the same judgment the Supreme Court talks about that the separation of power is not strict in India. So what is the conclusion? That though there is a separation of power, but it is not very strict. It is modified by the system of checks and balance. And then in 1973, the famous Keswanand Bharti case, also the Supreme Court again retreated that separation of power is very much part of the Indian Constitution, and that is the basic structure. It has included as a part of the basic structure of the Constitution. It should not be violated. But of course, already the Supreme Court had made it clear that there is no strict separation of power, though there is separation of power. And then in the various other judgments also, in 1996, Kannadasan versus State of Tamil Nadu. State of Tamil Nadu. Again, the Supreme Court retreated that we have a separation of power, but it is modified by a system of checks and balances. So with this, I think you can now answer it properly, that do you think the Constitution of India does not accept principle of separation of power? So first little bit write about what is separation of power. No need to go into all the details for this question regarding who propounded and what. Just in few lines or introduction you can write about separation of power, and that it was propounded by Montesquieu, you can say, and then directly come to the main point, that do the Indian Constitution recognize it or not. Then you have to support it, that like they have written does not, that you have to talk about yes, the Indian Constitution does recognize separation of power, and then you have to give all the relevant provisions we have discussed, the Constitution and the judgment. And then of course it is rather based on principles of checks and balance. So of course this is the main point. The conclusion has to be here that it is based on system of checks and balance. So ultimate essence of separation of power is checks and balance only. Separation of power in itself is impractical. It is impractical if each organ working in a completely independent fashion like an island and having no coordination with each other. That will be absolute impractical. How the governance will work? There has to be coordination. There has to be a system where they will interact with each other, and there will be a system where they might intervene in one organ going against the constitutional limit. And also, for separation of power to be established, Constitution is very much important. There has to be some form of constitution and democratic regime. There has to be democratic regime. So it fulfills in India, all the conditions we fulfill. We are a democratic system. We have a written constitution, right? So in this way you have to conclude it, that ultimately of course it is principle of checks and balance, because just mere separation of power in itself it has got it has not got a very relevant things, or it is practical in nature the way it was proposed by Montesquieu. There has to be a watertight separation of power, that look good in the theory but not in practice. So it is more modified by a principle of checks and balance, and it happens in India also, in US also, and you have to mention about all the provisions of the constitution. Okay, thank you so much.